The road had been quiet for hours, not the kind of quiet that comes with peace, but the kind that stretches gently, like a long breath held between moments. A single pair of boots moved steadily along the worn path, soft gravel shifting beneath each step, a slow, patient rhythm that had long since replaced thought. The traveler had no reason to rush. There was nowhere left to reach before nightfall. Above him, the sky was fading, not suddenly, not sharply, but in that slow medieval way where gold softens into amber and amber into a deepening blue. The last light of the sun clung to the horizon like a memory, and then even that began to slip away. The air had changed. It was cooler now, thinner. Each breath carried the scent of damp earth and distant wood, as if somewhere, unseen, a fire had already been lit for the night. The traveler pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders. It was not the cold that bothered him. It was the stillness. No birds called from the trees. No carts rolled along the road. No voices drifted from distant fields. Only the wind remained, soft, steady, brushing through the branches above, and even that seemed careful, as if it too did not wish to disturb the quiet. He had passed a village once, many miles behind him, or at least he thought he had. The memory of it was already fading. A few rooftops, a distant well, a figure at a doorway that did not wave. It was strange how quickly places disappeared once you left them. Stranger still, how little they seemed to call you back. The road ahead stretched onward, pale and narrow, carving its way between darkening trees. It did not twist, it did not turn. It simply continued, as if it had always been there and always would be. The traveler slowed his steps, not from exhaustion, though he had walked for longer than he could remember, but because something ahead had changed. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker, so faint it could have been mistaken for a trick of the eyes, a small, rippling light in the distance. He stopped. The wind brushed past him once more, lifting the edge of his cloak, and there it was again, a glow, warm, steady, unmistakable. For a long moment he did not move. He simply stood there, watching that distant light as the last of the day slipped quietly into night. It was not like the fading sky. It did not dim. It did not disappear. If anything, it grew clearer, more certain, as though it had been waiting to be seen. He took a step forward, then another. The gravel shifted again beneath his boots, that same slow, familiar rhythm returning. But now there was something different, something subtle, something almost forgotten, expectation. The trees seemed to gather closer as he walked. Their branches stretched overhead, weaving together into a loose canopy that softened the sky. The road narrowed slightly, or perhaps it only felt that way. The light ahead flickered gently, like a candle protected from the wind, and with each step it grew, not brighter exactly, but nearer, more real. Time passed, though how much he could not say. Minutes, perhaps, or something longer, the kind of time that slips unnoticed when there is nothing to measure it against. No sun, no voices, no change, but the steady rhythm of walking and the quiet promise of light ahead. Then, at last, the shape began to form. At first, only shadows, dark lines against a deeper darkness, then edges, angles, a structure emerging slowly from the night, low, wide, resting beside the road as though it had always belonged there, a building, an inn. Its windows glowed with a soft, golden light, not harsh, not bright, but warm in a way that felt almost inviting, the kind of light that did not call out, but waited patiently to be noticed. A wooden sign hung above the door, swaying gently in the wind. It creaked once, softly, as if announcing nothing more than its presence. The traveler stopped again, just at the edge of the clearing. The trees behind him whispered quietly, their branches shifting in the night air. Before him, the inn stood still, unmoving, certain there were no other travelers on the road, no horses tied outside, no voices spilling from within, and yet the light remained, steady, unchanging. For a moment, he simply watched, listening to the wind, to the silence, to the faintest sound of something inside. Not loud enough to understand, not clear enough to follow, but there, a warmth reached him then, subtle, carried on the air, the scent of firewood, of something cooking slowly, of a place untouched by the long, quiet road behind him. He took a breath, and for the first time that evening, it felt easy. The traveler stepped forward, out of the darkness of the road, and toward the light of the inn. The light did not flicker as he approached. It held steady, soft and golden, as though it had no concern for the wind that moved quietly through the trees. The traveler stepped fully into the clearing. Behind him, the road faded into shadow, its pale surface swallowed slowly by the night. Ahead, the inn stood alone, not abandoned, not broken, simply waiting. Cameron's Reef formed a loose circle around it, their tall, dark shapes standing like silent watchers at the edge of the clearing. Branches swayed gently overhead, but the space around the inn remained calm, still, as if the wind itself had chosen to pass around it rather than through. The traveler paused again, not out of fear, but because something about this place felt different, not strange, not wrong, just separate, like stepping into a memory that did not quite belong to him. The building itself was modest, constructed of dark timber and pale stone, its walls worn smooth by time rather than neglect. The roof sloped low, lined with uneven tiles that caught the faintest traces of moonlight. And from the chimney, a thin ribbon of smoke rose steadily into the night sky. It did not twist or scatter. It climbed gently upward, as though the air above the inn was calmer than anywhere else. The windows glowed warmly, soft light spilling outward, resting gently on the ground beneath them. Not bright enough to reveal everything, but enough to promise comfort. Inside, shadows moved, slowly, shapes passing behind the glass, unhurried, unconcerned. The traveler took another step, then another. The gravel beneath his boots grew quieter here, as though softened by time or by something unseen. Even his footsteps seemed to fade more quickly, leaving no echo behind. He approached the wooden sign hanging above the door. It swayed slightly, moving with a rhythm that did not quite match the wind. A soft creak broke the silence. Once, then stillness again. The sign itself was old, its surface worn smooth, the edges rounded by years of passing hands or weather. Any writing that may have once marked it had long since faded. Now it bore no name, no symbol, nothing to tell a traveler where he stood, and yet it did not feel lost. The traveler lifted his gaze toward the door. It was closed, thick oak, reinforced with dark iron bands, solid, but not unwelcoming. From beneath it, a faint line of golden light stretched outward, resting gently against the ground like a quiet invitation. He stood there for a moment, listening. At first, nothing, only the distant hush of the forest behind him, the soft movement of leaves, the quiet breath of the night. Then something else, a sound from within, faint, muted by the door and walls, but unmistakable, the low murmur of voices, not loud enough to distinguish words, not sharp enough to interrupt the stillness, just present. the soft hum of life continuing, unaware of the world beyond its walls. The traveler felt it then, that same subtle warmth he had noticed before, stronger now, closer. It carried with it the scent of burning wood, dry and steady, mixed with something richer, something slower, a meal perhaps, cooked over time rather than flame. His shoulders eased slightly. The tension he had not noticed before began to loosen its quiet hold. The road behind him had been long, too long to measure, too quiet to remember clearly, each step blending into the next, until only movement remained. But here, at the edge of this small, glowing place, there was something different, a pause, not forced, not earned, simply offered. The traveler reached for the door. His hand hovered there for a moment, just above the worn wood. He could feel the warmth even before touching it, a gentle heat radiating outward through the surface. He rested his palm against it. It was solid, real, and warm. For a brief moment, he did not move. He simply stood there, feeling the quiet steadiness of the door beneath his hand, listening to the soft murmur beyond it, breathing in the warmth that seemed to gather around him. Then, slowly, he pushed. The hinges did not groan. They did not resist. The door opened smoothly, as though it had been expecting him. A wave of warmth met him immediately, soft, enveloping. The air inside was different, heavier, perhaps, but in a way that felt comforting rather than stifling, filled with the scent of firelight, of wood, of something gently simmering in the background. The light shifted as the door opened wider. Shadows moved. The soft murmur of voices became clearer, though still indistinct. And for the first time that night, the traveler stepped fully out of the cold and into the warmth. The door closed softly behind him, not with a heavy sound, not with a thud or echo, but with a quiet finality, as though the world outside had been gently set aside. Warmth settled around him immediately, not just on his skin, but deeper, a kind of warmth that reaches slowly, unfolding through tired muscles, through long-held tension, until even the act of standing still begins to feel easier. For a moment, he did not move. The fire was the first thing he noticed. It burned low in a wide stone hearth along the far wall, its flames steady and unhurried, no sharp crackling, no sudden bursts. Just a slow, consistent glow. Logs settling gently into embers, casting soft light that filled the room without effort. Shadows stretched and folded along the wooden beams above. They did not dance wildly. They drifted, shifting just enough to remind him that time was still passing, even if it felt slower here. The air carried a quiet mixture of scents. Wood smoke, deep and grounding, fresh bread, warm and soft, and beneath it all, something richer, a stew, perhaps, simmering patiently, as though it had been cooking for longer than the night itself. The traveler stepped forward. His boots touched the wooden floor, and even that sound felt softened, muted, as if the room itself had chosen to absorb it. There were people inside, not many, just enough to fill the space without crowding it. A man sat near the fire, his hands resting loosely in his lap. He did not speak, did not move much at all. His gaze remained fixed on the flames, as though he had been watching them for a very long time. At another table, a woman leaned slightly over a piece of cloth in her hands, knitting perhaps. Her fingers moved slowly, deliberately, each motion steady and unhurried. She did not look up. Further back, a pair of figures sat across from one another, their heads tilted slightly as though in conversation, but no words carried across the room. Only the soft presence of voices blended together into a gentle murmur. No one seemed surprised to see him. No one turned suddenly. No one stared. A few eyes lifted briefly, acknowledging him in quiet, passing glances, and then, just as gently, returned to where they had been before. It was not indifference, nor was it curiosity. It was something else, acceptance, as though his arrival had always been expected and required no reaction at all. The traveler let out a slow breath. He had not realized he would be holding it. The room itself was simple. Wooden beams stretched across the ceiling, darkened with age, but well kept. Tables stood spaced apart, their surfaces worn smooth by time and use. Nothing felt new, but nothing felt broken either. Everything here carried the quiet mark of years, without the weight of them. The fire shifted slightly. A log settled deeper into the embers, sending a soft glow outward across the floor. For a moment, the light reached the far corners of the room, and then returned to its steady calm. Behind a long wooden counter, someone stood, the innkeeper. He had been there the entire time, and yet the traveler could not remember noticing him before. There was nothing remarkable about him. No sharp features, no commanding presence, just a stillness, a quiet certainty in the way he stood, hands resting lightly against the surface of the counter. His gaze met the traveler's, not questioning, not searching, simply aware. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then slowly, the innkeeper gave a small nod, a simple gesture, but one that carried something more than greeting, recognition. The traveler stepped closer. His movements felt slower now, not from fatigue, but from the way the room seemed to shape them, encourage them. Even time itself felt different here. Not paused, not stopped, just softened. "You have come a long way," the innkeeper said at last. His voice was low, even, carrying easily through the room, without disturbing its quiet. The traveler did not answer, not because he could not, but because the words did not seem necessary. The innkeeper seemed to understand. He turned slightly, reaching for something just out of view, a bowl, simple, wooden, steam rising gently from its surface. He placed it on counter, then beside it, a piece of bread, still warm. "Sit," he said. No urgency, no expectation, just an offering. The traveler hesitated for only a moment. Then slowly, he moved toward an empty seat near the fire. The chair was solid beneath him, comfortable in a way that required no adjustment. The bowl rested in his hands now, warm against his palms. Steam curled upward in soft, steady threads. The scent was richer here, deeper. He lifted the spoon. The first taste was quiet, simple, and yet it lingered. Not sharp, not overwhelming, just enough. Across the room, the fire continued its slow, steady burn. The guests remained as they were, still, calm, present. And the road outside, with all its distance, its silence, its endless stretch into darkness, felt suddenly very far away. The bowl rested warmly in his hands, not too hot, not cooling too quickly either, just steady. The traveler sat quietly by the fire, the soft glow of it settling across his shoulders, gently easing the last traces of the road from his body. He lifted the spoon again, slowly. The movement felt natural here, unhurried, as though there was no reason for it to be anything else. The stew was simple, thick, warm. Each bite carried the same quiet comfort as the last. No strong spices, no sharp flavors, just something familiar, something that did not demand attention, but held it anyway. He swallowed, and for a moment he simply sat there. The fire shifted softly, a low crackle, barely more than a whisper. Around him, the inn remained unchanged. The man by the hearth still watched the flames, his posture relaxed, unmoving. The woman continued her knitting, needle passing through thread with the same gentle rhythm. And the two figures at the back, still leaning slightly toward one another, still speaking in voices too quiet to follow. Nothing hurried, nothing ended. The traveler dipped the spoon again. The bowl was still full. He paused, only slightly, just enough to notice. He was certain he had eaten, not quickly, not absent-mindedly. Each movement had been slow, deliberate. He had felt the warmth, tasted the food, watched the steam rise and fade, and yet the bowl remained as it had been, full. No one else seemed to notice. The innkeeper stood behind the counter, calm as before, his presence steady, unchanging. He did not watch closely, did not react, only remained as he was. The traveler looked back down at the bowl. Steam still curled upward in soft, steady lines, the surface of the stew undisturbed. He took another bite, the same warmth, the same quiet fullness, nothing different, and still nothing less. A soft breath left him, not confusion, not concern, just acknowledgement. Whatever this place was, it did not follow the same quiet rules as the road outside, but neither did it resist him. It asked nothing. Across the room, a chair shifted slightly. One of the guests rose, slowly, without sound. The traveler glanced up. The man who had been sitting near the fire stepped away from his seat, not abruptly, not with purpose that could be seen, just standing, as though it was simply time to do so. He moved toward the far side of the room. His steps were light, measured, and then he stopped, not at the door, not at the counter, just within the room itself. For a moment he stood there, still. Then quietly he turned and sat down again, a different chair this time, closer to the wall. Nothing else changed. The fire continued its slow, steady glow. The woman's knitting did not pause. The low murmur of voices remained soft and distant. No one questioned the movement, no acknowledged it at all. It was as though nothing unusual had happened. The traveler returned his attention to the bowl, still full, still warm. He no longer tried to measure it, no longer searched for an answer. Instead, he simply continued, spoon lifting, breath steady, firelight shifting gently across the surface of the table. Time passed, though here it did not feel like passing. It felt like settling. Each moment resting softly beside the next, without urgency, without erection. The bread beside the bowl remained warm as well. He reached for it. The crust gave slightly beneath his fingers, softened by heat. He broke off a piece. No sound, not even a crumb fell to the table. He tasted it, simple, and like the stew, unchanged, not growing cold, not diminishing, just present. The traveler leaned back slightly in his chair. The warmth of the fire reached him more fully now, wrapped around him in a way that felt complete. For the first time since the road, since the long, quiet distance he had walked, there was nothing pulling him forward, no next step, no destination, only this, the steady fire, the quiet room, the soft presence of others who asked nothing of him, and the meal that did not end. His gaze drifted slowly across the inn once more. Everything remained as it had been, unchanged, not frozen, not still in the way of absence, but steady, as if this place had found a rhythm and chosen to remain within it. The traveler lowered his eyes again. The bowl rested in his hands, warm, full, and without thinking, without questioning, he took another slow, quiet bite. The warmth of the fire had settled fully now, not just around him, But within him, the traveler sat quietly, the bowl still resting in his hands, though he no longer noticed its weight, or rather, the lack of it. Across the room, nothing had changed, and yet something had. It was not in the fire, not in the light, not in the soft murmur of voices that never rose or fell. It was in the people. He watched them now, not out of curiosity, but because there was nothing else that asked for his attention. The man who had moved from the hearth remained in his new seat. His posture relaxed, his gaze lowered slightly, as though he were resting his eyes. Without fully closing them, he had not returned to the fire, and yet he did not seem to miss it. The woman with the knitting continued her quiet work. Her hands moved with the same steady rhythm, thread passing through thread, loop following loop. But the cloth in her lap, it did not grow. The traveler watched carefully now, not sharply, not with strain, just noticing. Each motion was the same as before, deliberate, precise, and yet the pattern remained unchanged. No edge reached completion. No length extended beyond what it had been. It simply continued, as though the act itself was all that mattered. At the table in the back, the two figures still leaned toward one another. Their voices remained soft, blending together into something that could not quite be separated. There were no pauses, no laughter, no silence between thoughts, just continuous, gentle murmur, like a stream that never slowed and never rushed. The traveler listened for a moment longer. No single word reached him, only the presence of speech. He shifted slightly in his seat. The chair did not creak, the floor did not answer. Even movement here felt absorbed. He glanced toward the door. It remained closed. The faint line of light beneath it still stretched across the floor, unchanged. No shadows passed beneath it. No sound came from the other side. It was as though the road itself, the long, quiet path he had walked, no longer existed beyond that door. The thought did not trouble him. It simply settled, like everything else in this place. He turned his gaze toward the innkeeper, still behind the counter, still as before. There was no sign of fatigue in him, no shifting of weight, no restless movement, only a calm, steady presence. As if he had stood there for longer than time could measure, and found no need to move from it. The traveler wondered, briefly, how long any of them had been here. The question came softly, without urgency, without demand. It lingered for only a moment, and then, like everything else, it faded, not forgotten, just no longer needed. He looked again at the guests. No one prepared to leave, no cloaks gathered, no chairs pushed back with purpose, no glances cast toward the door. There was no sense of waiting, no sense of next. Only being. The man near the wall shifted slightly, resting his hands more comfortably in his lap. The woman's knitting continued, each motion as gentle as the last. The voices at the back remained soft, unbroken, and the fire steady, always steady. The traveler became aware of his own stillness. His breath had slowed, each inhale soft, each exhale even softer. The kind of breathing that comes not from effort, but from the absence of it. His shoulders had lowered. The quiet tension he had carried from the road, the unseen weight of distance and time, had loosened completely. There was nothing here to carry, nothing to prepare for. Even the idea of leaving felt distant, not impossible, just unnecessary. The bowl remained in his hands, still warm, still full. He no longer questioned it. Like the fire, like the guests, as the room itself, it simply was. His gaze drifted slowly across the inn once more. Every detail returned to him, as though it had never changed. The worn wood of the tables, the soft glow of the firelight, the quiet shapes of those who sat within it. Nothing demanded attention, nothing stood apart, and yet everything felt complete, as though this place did not need to become anything more than what it already was. The traveler leaned back slightly in his chair. The warmth held him there, not tightly, not firmly, just enough. The fire crackled softly, the voices murmured, the knitting continued, and the night beyond the door remained unseen. He closed his eyes for a moment, not to sleep, just to rest them. And in that quiet pause, with the warmth surrounding him, the steady rhythm of the room, the absence of anything that needed to be done, the thought returned, so gently it almost went unnoticed. No one here was leaving. His eyes opened slowly. The room remained the same, unchanged, unhurried, and for the first time he did not wonder why. At first, it was only a sound, soft, distant, barely there. The traveler did not notice it immediately. It slipped into the room quietly, blending with the low murmur of voices, with the gentle breath of the fire, until it became part of the space itself, a faint tapping, irregular at first, like, almost uncertain, then steady, rain. It touched the roof in soft, scattered drops, not heavy, not urgent, just a quiet arrival, spreading gently across the inn. The traveler lifted his gaze slightly, not fully, just enough to listen. The sound grew clearer, rain against wood, rain against stone, rain brushing lightly across the windows. A rhythm began to form, slow, even, unchanging. Like the fire, like the voices, like everything else in this place. He turned his head toward the nearest window. The glass caught the firelight softly, reflecting the room back into itself. Beyond it, only darkness and the rain. It fell in thin, endless lines, not driven by wind, not shifting direction, just falling. The traveler watched for a moment longer. The pattern did not change. No sudden gusts, no pauses, no increase or fading, only the same steady rhythm, repeating again and again and again. He became aware of his breathing once more, slow, matching, inhale as the rain softened, exhale as it returned. The two sounds, breath and rain, settled together without effort. Across the room, nothing had shifted. The guests remained as they were. The woman's hands continued their quiet motion. Thread, thread, through, thread, loop after loop. The man near the wall rested in stillness. The voices at the back, unchanged. The fire, steady, always steady. The traveler lowered his gaze. The bowl in his hands still held its warmth, still held its fullness. Steam rose in soft, curling lines, unchanged by time, unchanged by the passing of moments. He no longer tried to measure how long he had been sitting there. There was no sense in it. The room offered no markers, no fading light, no shifting shadows. Even the fire, though it moved, never seemed to diminish. A log settled gently inward. The glow deepened for a moment, and then returned to what it had been before, the same, always the same. The traveler leaned back slightly. The chair held him with quiet ease, no pressure, no resistance, just enough. The rain continued, its rhythm now fully formed, soft, endless, a pattern without beginning and without end. He listened more closely. There were no variations, no louder drops, no sudden silence. Each moment of sound was a reflection of the one before it, and the one after, a perfect repetition, like breathing, like the gentle rise and fall of the chest. The traveler closed his eyes again. This time, he did not open them immediately. There was nothing he needed to see. The room remained as it was. Whether he watched it or not, the fire would continue. The voices would remain soft. The guests would sit in their quiet stillness. And the rain would fall, steady, unbroken. He let his attention rest on the sound, not following it, not analyzing it, just allowing it. Each drop touching the roof, each soft brush against the glass. A rhythm that did not ask to be understood, only could be heard. His breathing slowed further. Inhale, exhale, the space between them stretched slightly longer. Not forced, not controlled, just natural, as though the room itself had found his breath and gently guided it into its rhythm. Time passed, or perhaps it simply rested. The traveler could no longer tell the difference. The night outside the window did not deepen. It did not lighten. It remained exactly as it had been when the rain first began, endless, unchanging. Inside, the same stillness held. No one rose, no one left, no one marked the passing of time, because here there was nothing to pass, only the quiet continuation of what already was. The traveler felt his body settle further into the chair. His hands loosened slightly around the bowl, not enough to drop it, just enough to release the need to hold. The warmth remained constant, reliable, like the fire, like the rain, like this place. His thoughts slowed, not fading completely, but spacing out, each one softer than the last, until even thinking itself felt unnecessary. And in that quiet space, with the rain falling endlessly above, the fire glowing steadily before him, and the world beyond the inn resting somewhere far away, there was nothing left to do, nothing left to reach, nothing left to become. Only this moment and the next, which felt exactly the same. The rain continued, soft, steady, unchanging. It rested gently over everything, the roof, the windows, the quiet space between each breath. The traveler sat by the fire, still and at ease, the warmth holding him in place, without effort. For a while, nothing shifted. The same slow rhythm of the room carried on, the same quiet presence of those within it. And then the innkeeper moved. It was subtle, so subtle that it might have been missed if the traveler had not already grown used to the stillness of everything else. Single step from behind the counter, no sound, not even the soft press of foot against wood. He came to stand beside the traveler's table. There was no urgency in him, no interruption, only a quiet arrival. "You may rest," he said. His voice was low, even softer than before. It did not break the rhythm of the room. It folded into it. The traveler looked up. The innkeeper's expression had not changed, calm, steady, as though this moment, like all others here, had always been waiting. "There is a room," he continued, "just above." No gesture followed, no pointing, and yet the traveler understood. He set the bowl down. For the first time his hands were empty. The warmth remained, as though it had never truly come from the bowl at all. He stood. The movement was slow, not from fatigue, but because the room seemed to encourage it, to soften each action until it carried no weight at all. The chair did not scrape. The floor did not respond. Even standing felt quiet. He turned. At the far side of the room, just beyond the edge of the firelight, a narrow staircase rose upward. He had not noticed it before, or perhaps he simply had not needed to. The steps were wooden, worn smooth, each one slightly curved from years of use, though there was no sign that anyone had used them recently. The traveler stepped toward them. Behind him, the room remained unchanged. The fire continued. The guests remained. The voices murmured softly, without pause, without end. The rain fell, always the same. He placed his foot on the first step. It held firm, no creak, no shift, just quiet support. He climbed slowly, one step, then another. Each movement carried the same soft rhythm that had filled the room below. There was no sense of height, no sense of distance from the ground, only the steady motion upward. The light from below followed him part way, stretching gently along the staircase, and then fading, not suddenly, just enough. At the top, a short hallway waited, dim, still, lit by a single candle fixed to the wall. Its flame did not flicker, it held steady, just like everything else in this place. There were several doors, closed, unmarked. No sound came from behind them, no movement, just quiet. The traveler paused, not to choose, because something within him already had. He moved to one of the doors. It stood slightly apart from the others, not closer, not farther, just right. He reached for the handle. The wood was warm, as though someone had touched it only moments before, or perhaps as though it had never cooled. He turned it slowly. The door opened without resistance. Inside, a room, simple. A bed rested against the far wall, covered in thick, heavy blankets. A small table stood beside it. A candle burned there, its light soft and steady. A window looked out into the night, or rather, into the rain. The traveler stepped inside. The air felt different here. Quieter, not empty, just deeper, as though the silence had settled more fully into the space. He moved toward the bed, each step softer than the last. The floor beneath him gave nothing back. No sound, no echo, only stillness. He sat. The mattress sank slightly beneath him, firm but gentle. The blankets were warm, not from use, not from another presence, just warm, like the door, like the bowl, like the room below. He leaned back slowly. The weight of his body settled into the bed, easing into it, as though it had been waiting. The ceiling above him remained still, wooden beams, dark and steady, crossing quietly overhead. The candle flickered once, then returned to stillness. Outside, the rain continued, unchanged, endless. He turned his head slightly toward the window. The glass reflected the soft light of the room. Beyond it, only darkness and the rain. No horizon, no distance, just the same steady fall. He closed his eyes. The sounds remained. The rain, the faint, distant presence of the fire below, the quiet, unbroken stillness of everything around him. His breathing slowed, deeper now, more distant, as though each breath drifted slightly further away and returned just as gently. There was no thought of the road, no memory of the journey that had brought him here, only this room, this moment, this quiet, endless night, and the soft feeling settling deeper with each passing breath that he had been here before, not recently, not clearly, but in a way that did not need remembering, only recognition. The rain continued. The candle held its flame, and the traveler rested. The rain continued, soft, endless, unchanged. It rested gently against the window, a quiet rhythm that neither rose nor fell, only remained. The traveler lay still upon the bed. His breathing had slowed further now, each inhale soft, each exhale softer still. For a time there was nothing else, no thought, no movement, only the quiet presence of the room and the steady sound of rain beyond it. Then a shift, not in the room, not in the light, but within him. A small awareness rising gently to the surface, like something remembered without effort, Morning, the word came without urgency, not as a need, not as a plan, just a recognition that there had once been such a thing, a time when night would fade, when light would return, when the world beyond a window would change. The traveler opened his eyes. The room remained as it had been. The candle still burned. The shadows still rested quietly along the beams above, and the rain still fell, unchanged. He turned his head toward the window. No pale light touched the horizon. No sign of dawn pressed against the darkness, only the same steady curtain of rain. He watched it for a moment, waiting, not impatiently, just observing. But nothing shifted. No gradual lightening of the sky, no thinning of the rain, only repetition, the same moment, continuing. He sat up slowly. The blankets slipped gently from his shoulders, still holding their warmth. His feet touched the floor. No sound. The room accepted the movement without response. He stood. The quiet remained. He moved toward the door, each step soft, unmeasured. The handle was where he had left it, warm, unchanged. He rested his hand upon it. For a brief moment, he paused, not out of hesitation, but because something within him had begun to notice the sameness, the way each moment followed the last without difference, the way the night had not moved, the way the rain had not changed, the way the room held itself in perfect stillness. And yet, there was no resistance in him, no urgency to question it, only a quiet awareness. He turned the handle. The door opened, softly. Without sound, he stepped through, expecting the hallway, the dim candle, the closed doors. But the warmth reached him first, familiar, steady, then the firelight, soft and golden, the low murmur of voices, unchanged. The traveler stood still. The room below stretched out before him, the same, exactly as it had been. The fire burned in its place. The guests remained seated. The woman's hands moved through her knitting. The two figures at the back leaned toward one another, their voices still soft and unbroken. The man near the wall sat quietly, his posture unchanged. And the innkeeper stood behind the counter, as before, as always. The traveler did not move immediately. He did not step forward. He did not turn back. He simply stood there, at the edge of the room, listening. The rain continued above. The fire shifted softly. The voices remained low. Nothing had changed, not while he had rested, not while he had closed his eyes, not even now. The realization came gently, not sudden, not sharp, just settling. Like everything else in this place, there was no before, there was no after, only this, repeating, continuing, unbroken. The traveler stepped forward at last. His movement did not disturb the room. No one turned. No one reacted. It was as though he had never left, as though the time upstairs, the quiet rest, the stillness of the room, not been separate all, only another part of the same moment. He returned to his seat near the fire. The chair accepted him easily. The bowl was there, waiting, still warm, still full. He rested his hands around it. The warmth returned to him at once, familiar, certain. The firelight moved gently across the surface of the stew, the same as before, always the same. The traveler did not question it. He no longer needed to. The realization had settled fully now. Not as something to understand, but something to accept. This place did not move forward. It did not leave anything behind. It did not change, and those within it did not need it to. The rain continued, soft, endless. The fire burned steadily. The voices murmured. The room remained, and the traveler sat quietly within it, as though he had always been there. The fire continued its steady glow, low, quiet, unchanging. The traveler sat as before, the bowl resting in his hands, the warmth returning to him as though it had never left. The rain fell above, soft, endless, each drop the same as the last. Nothing in the room asked for attention, nothing demanded understanding, and yet something had settled within him, not a question, not confusion, but a quiet awareness that had no need for urgency. He lifted his gaze. The innkeeper stood behind the counter, as he always had, still, present, as though he had never moved and never needed to. Their eyes met. This time, the silence between them lingered slightly longer, not empty, not uncertain, just ready. The innkeeper stepped forward, again, without sound, again, without disturbance. He came to stand near the fire, its soft light resting across his face. For a moment, he said nothing. He simply stood there, as though allowing the room itself to remain exactly as it was. Then quietly, "You have noticed," he said. The traveler did not answer. He did not need to. The innkeeper gave a small nod, as though the absence of words had already spoken enough. "This place," he continued, his voice as calm as the firelight, "is not like the road." The traveler listened, not with effort, 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 not with. "The road moves," the innkeeper said. "It asks for steps, for distance, for time." His gaze drifted briefly toward the door. Out there, things begin and they end. The rain continued above, unchanged. But here, he paused, not searching for words, only allowing them to arrive. There is no need for that. The fire shifted softly. A quiet glow moved across the floor and then settled again. "This place is for those who have walked long enough." The traveler's hands remained still around the bowl. "For those who no longer wish to measure the distance ahead or the distance behind." The innkeeper's voice did not rise. It did not fall. It remained steady. "Here, there is no before." A small pause. "No after." The rain continued. "Only the same. There is only what is." The words did not echo. They did not linger sharply in the air. They settled, like everything else. The traveler lowered his gaze slightly. The bowl remained full. The warmth remained constant. Around him, the guests continued as they always had. The woman's knitting, the quiet murmur of voices, the stillness of those who sat without need to move. "They've all come from somewhere," the innkeeper said gently. His gaze moved across the room, "but they do not carry it with them." The traveler followed his eyes. No one spoke of where they had been. No one prepared to leave. No one waited. "They have chosen to rest." The word chosen did not press heavily. It did not demand meaning. It simply existed. The innkeeper looked back at him. "And you may do the same." The traveler did not respond, not because he resisted, but because the idea itself did not feel like a decision. It felt like something that had already begun, something that had been happening since the moment he stepped into the light. "There is no cost," the innkeeper continued. "No price." The fire glowed softly between them. "Nothing is taken from you." The rain tapped gently above. "Only what you no longer need is left behind." The traveler's breath moved slowly, even, quiet. He could feel it now. The absence of weight, the absence of distance, the absence of anything that needed to be reached. The innkeeper stepped back slightly, not leaving, just returning to where he had been, as though his place, too, was part of the room's quiet rhythm. "The door is still there," he said. His voice remained calm. "It will open." The traveler glanced toward it, closed, still, unchanged. "You may leave if you wish." No pressure followed, no expectation, only the offering. The same as the warmth, the same as the meal, the same as the room itself. The traveler looked back at the fire. Its glow remained steady, the same soft movement, the same quiet presence. Around him, nothing shifted, nothing urged him forward, nothing held him in place. The rain continued, endless, unbroken. And within that quiet, with the warmth surrounding him, with the stillness settling deeper with each breath, the traveler understood, not with words, not with thought, but with something quieter. This place did not keep anyone. It simply remained, and those who stayed did so because they no longer wished to leave. The traveler lowered his gaze once more. The bowl rested in his hands, warm, full, unchanged. He did not lift the spoon. He did not need to. The firelight flickered softly across the surface. The room held its quiet shape. And the choice, if it could be called that, rested gently beside him, unspoken, unforced, waiting, without needing to be made. The fire continued to burn, soft, steady, unchanging. The traveler sat where he had been, the warmth of the room resting around him like something that had always been there. Nothing pressed forward. Nothing pulled him back. The inn remained as it was. The guests sat quietly in their places. The woman's hands moved in their endless pattern. The low murmur of voices continued, gentle and without pause, and above it all, the rain fell, endless, the same as it had been since the moment it began. The traveler's hands rested loosely around the bowl. He did not lift it. He did not need to. The warmth was already there. He let out a slow breath. It came easily, not guided, not controlled, just present. His gaze drifted toward the door. It remained closed. The faint line of light beneath it rested softly against the floor, unchanged. It would open. The innkeeper had said so. The road would still be there, the long path through the trees, the quiet distance, stretching forward. Time would move again. Moments would pass. Things would begin and end. The traveler held that thought for a moment, not tightly, just enough to feel it. The road, the movement, the weight of each step. Then he let it go, not pushed away, not forgotten, just released, like a breath that had already been taken. His gaze returned to the fire. It moved gently, casting soft light across the wooden floor. The same light, always the same. There was no future in it, no past, only the quiet presence of its steady glow. The traveler leaned back slightly in his chair. The warmth held him, not firmly, not completely, just enough. The kind of warmth that did not ask him to stay, but made leaving feel unnecessary. Around him, nothing changed. No one rose. No one gathered their things. No one looked toward the door. There was no sense of waiting, no sense of time passing, only the quiet continuation of what already was. The traveler closed his eyes. The fire remained. He could still feel it, a soft presence against his skin. The rain continued. He could still hear it, that endless, steady rhythm above. The voices murmured, soft, distant, blending into something that did not need to be understood. His breathing slowed. Inhale, exhale, each breath softer than the last, the space between them growing gently wider, not forced, just happening. The room held him in that quiet space. Nothing moved forward. Nothing fell behind. Everything remained exactly where it was. The traveler felt the last traces of the road fade completely, not erased, just no longer carried. No distance, no destination, no need to continue, only rest, deep, quiet, endless. The rain continued, the fire glowed, the voices softened further until they became part of the silence itself, and within that stillness, the traveler did not choose. He did not decide to stay. He did not decide to leave, because here there was no need to decide at all. The moment held him gently, just as it held everything else, unchanging, unbroken, complete. His breath slowed once more, then softened, then settled into something so quiet it almost disappeared. The fire remained. The rain continued. The inn stood quietly in the forest, its warm light steady against the endless night. And within it, nothing moved, nothing ended, nothing began. Only the same quiet moment, continuing, again and again and again,